In the far edge of human space, on a dusty colony world, there lived an alien child. No one cared about her name. No one cared if she lived or died. To the people of that world, she was only a shadow, something less than nothing. She was small, thin and weak. Her skin had a strange pale glow, her eyes large and dark like they were holding secrets from another world. But those secrets were never asked. The humans of the colony did not want to know. To them, she was just a burden. She was an orphan. Her family was gone, killed in a war long forgotten. No one remembered how. No one wanted to remember. Her parents had died when she was very young, and she had wandered since then, begging for scraps, hiding from those who threw stones at her. The humans of the colony had a word for her kind. They called them strays. Strays were useless. Strays were broken. And she was the weakest of all strays. Sometimes she would sit in the shadow of the colony walls, staring through the iron gates. She saw children laugh, run, and play together. She wanted to join them, but every time she took a step forward, they pushed her back. They mocked her, called her ugly, not even a girl, just an it. And so, she learned to keep her distance. She learned to keep silent. She lived like a ghost. At night, she slept under broken metal sheets near the trash piles behind the colony's factories. Rats and insects were her only company. She was always hungry, always cold. But worse than hunger and cold was the loneliness, because deep inside, she was not only a child, she was a female. She had a heart, she had dreams, she had a hope. Small, as a dying flame. But nobody saw her that way. Nobody looked at her with kindness. Days turned into years. She grew slowly, but still no one noticed her. She was invisible, living in the cracks of human life. One evening, as the red sun sank behind the desert hills, she sat near the trash fire, holding a small piece of broken glass in her hands. The glass caught the light, and for a moment, it looked like a jewel. She stared at it and imagined it was a gift. She imagined someone had given it to her because she was loved. But the truth returned quickly. No one would ever give her anything. Her stomach growled. She rose and walked into the streets searching for food. People passed her by as if she did not exist. A soldier shoved her away with his boot when she came too close. A merchant shouted at her for touching the fruit on his stall. Children threw stones, laughing when she fell into the dirt. Still, she did not cry. She had learned long ago that tears brought only more cruelty. She kept her head down and moved on. The night grew darker. The wind grew colder. She found nothing to eat, nothing to warm her. Her small body shook. She thought, maybe tomorrow will be my last day. But fate is strange. Fate changes when no one expects it. As she sat on the cold ground, watching the stars, through the smoke of the colony towers, someone noticed her. It was a man. A human. He stood at a distance, watching quietly. Unlike others, he did not laugh. He did not throw stones. He simply looked. His eyes were different. Not filled with hate, not filled with disgust. Something else was there. She lowered her head, thinking he too would walk away. Everyone always walked away, but he did not. Slowly, he came closer. The girl's heart beat faster. Fear rose inside her. Should she run? Should she hide? She had learned that humans were dangerous. But this man knelt down. He held out his hand. In it was a piece of bread. The girl froze. Bread. Real food. She could smell it, warm and soft. But she did not take it. It could be a trick, it could be a trap. The man did not push her, he did not force. He simply placed the bread on the ground between them and waited. The girl's eyes locked on the food. Her hunger screamed inside her. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she reached for it. She snatched it quickly and stepped back, ready to run. But when she looked at the man again, he was still kneeling, still calm. For the first time in her life, someone had given her something without cruelty. Her mind raced. Why? Why would a human do this? The man stood, gave her a small nod, and walked away into the night. The girl held the bread tightly, her stomach and heart both burning. She could not understand. She could not believe it. For the first time, she felt something strange, something she had never felt before. Hope. But hope is dangerous, and she did not know yet that this man, this single human, would change everything. He would see her as no one ever had before. He would see her not as a stray, not as a burden, not as an it. He would see her as a female. And that would be the beginning of a story that the colony, and maybe the whole galaxy, would never forget. The night after he gave her bread, the alien orphan could not sleep. She sat under the broken roof of her shelter, holding the last crumbs in her hand. Her body was weak, but her mind was racing. Why did he do it? She thought. No one had ever given her food before. No one had ever treated her with even a little kindness. Humans had only pushed her away, shouted at her, hurt her. But this man, he was different. She did not know his name. She only remembered his face, tired eyes, strong shoulders, a scar across his cheek. He looked like a man who had seen many battles, a man who had survived pain. But when he looked at her, his eyes were soft, not hard. The next day, she returned to the same street, her heart beating fast. She did not want to see him again, but at the same time, she did. She wanted to know if he was real or only a dream. Hours passed. The marketplace was loud with the sound of merchants and machines. She stayed in the shadows, afraid to be seen. People still mocked her, threw insults, but she kept waiting. And then, she saw him. He was walking down the street carrying a heavy pack on his back. His clothes were old, dusty from travel. Soldiers nodded at him as he passed, which told her he was respected. Maybe a fighter, maybe a worker. He stopped at a fruit stall, bought something, and turned. His eyes met hers. She froze. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. She thought he might ignore her now, pretend the night before never happened. But he gave a small nod, almost like a secret signal. Her heart pounded. Later, when the sun was setting, she found herself near the same place as before. She told herself she was only looking for food, but deep inside she knew the truth. She was waiting for him. And again he came. This time he carried not just bread, but water in a small container. He placed it on the ground and stepped back. She stared at it. Hunger and thirst battled with fear inside her. Slowly she took the bread, drank the water, and whispered a word so quiet she wasn't sure he heard it. "Thank you." The man tilted his head. His expression softened, almost like he was surprised she could speak. But he said nothing. He simply watched as she ate. That silence was strange. Most humans filled the air with noise, mocking, cursing, shouting. But he was silent, patient, like he understood something no one else did. The girl wanted to ask him why he was helping her. But the words were heavy, stuck in her throat. She had forgotten how to talk to anyone. Years of silence had made her voice small and broken. When she finished, she expected him to leave again. But this time he sat on a broken stone wall near her shelter. He looked up at the stars, not at her, as if waiting for something. Finally he spoke. His voice was calm, deep. "You are not invisible. I see you." The words struck her heart like fire. She did not understand them fully, but something inside her shifted. For years, she had been treated like air, like nothing. But this man claimed he could see her. She whispered, almost afraid, "Why?" The man looked at her then. His eyes were steady, full of a strange kind of respect. "Because no one else will," he said. The girl felt a sharp ache in her chest. Not pain, something else. Something she had no name for. That night when he left, she followed him at a distance. Not close enough to be noticed, but just far enough to feel connected. He walked into a small house near the edge of the colony. No soldiers guarded it. No family waited inside. The windows were dark. He lived alone. That night she returned to her broken shelter, but the loneliness felt different. For the first time, she knew there was another being in the colony who had looked at her without hate. The next days became a rhythm. He came with food, sometimes water, sometimes small scraps of cloth to keep her warm. He never forced her to talk, never demanded anything. He only gave, and then he waited. Slowly, she began to trust. One evening, as the sky glowed red, she dared to step closer, not just to grab the food and run, but to sit a little near him. The distance between them was still wide, but smaller than before. The man noticed, but he said nothing. He only shared half of the bread, eating the other half himself. For the first time, she did not eat alone. Days later, something even stranger happened. A group of boys saw her near him and started to shout. "Why waste food on that thing?" one of them yelled. "She's not even a real girl, she's garbage." The girl lowered her head, expecting the man to agree, to push her away. But instead, he stood, his shadow long in the sunset, and faced them. "Enough," he said. His voice was sharp, commanding. The boys fell silent, fear flashing in their eyes. "Leave her alone." And they did. They ran. The girl looked up at him, wide-eyed. No one had ever defended her, not once in her whole life. At that moment, something inside her cracked open. A wall she had built for years began to break. She did not know the word for what she felt, but she knew it was powerful. She was no longer just an orphan, no longer just a stray, because one human had decided she was worth protecting. But she did not yet understand the truth, that protection would come with a cost, and that the universe itself would not allow their bond to stay simple. The days turned into weeks, and the meetings between the alien orphan and the human man became something more than chance. At first she had stayed far away, only daring to eat the food he left. But now she found herself waiting for him each evening, her dark eyes searching through the crowd, hoping to see his scarred face appear again. And he always came. He never missed a day. Even when the weather was cruel, even when sandstorms cut across the colony, he arrived with food, water, and quiet presence. At first she thought it was pity. Maybe he saw her as a weak animal that needed feeding, but as time passed, she noticed something different in his gaze. He did not look at her like others did, like a creature, like a stray. He looked at her as if she were real. One evening, the girl dared to sit a little closer. Her thin hands clutched a small piece of fruit he had given her. She chewed slowly, eyes darting to him and away again. The man finally spoke. "What is your name?" Her breath caught. She had not spoken her name in years. No one had asked. Names were for people. She was not seen as a person. She whispered, barely audible, "Isha." The sound of her own voice startled her. It felt like a forgotten part of her soul had awakened. The man nodded, repeating softly, "Isha." For the first time, her name had been spoken without hate. After that day, she began to talk a little more. Just small words, just enough to show she was not only a shadow. She learned his name too. He was called Raylan, a worker, a fighter in his younger days. Now, a man who lived alone, carrying scars no one else cared about. As days passed, they shared more than food. They shared silence, the kind that did not hurt. They shared glances, the kind that spoke louder than words. A strange bond began to grow, fragile, but real. Yet others noticed. Whispers spread in the colony. People mocked Raylan behind his back. "The fool feeds an alien stray," they said. "He wastes his time on garbage." Some laughed openly when they saw him near her. Others warned him, "Stay away from that thing. Strays bring bad luck." But Raylan never stopped. And each time he came, Isha's heart grew stronger. One night, when the stars shone bright over the colony, Raylan brought something unusual. A small blanket, patched but warm. He placed it on the ground near her. "For the cold nights," he said simply. Her thin fingers touched the fabric. Warmth spread through her chest in a way she had never felt before. not just from the blanket, but from the meaning behind it. Tears welled in her eyes. She turned her face away quickly, ashamed to show weakness. But Raylan noticed. His voice was, "Quiet. You don't have to hide from me." The words were like fire and water at the same time, burning her fear, washing her loneliness. For the first time in her life, she let herself cry. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. She hated that sound, the sound of weakness. But Raylan did not laugh. He did not walk away. He simply sat there looking at the stars, waiting until her tears were done. When her sobs faded, he said something that made her heart stop. "You are not just a stray. You are a girl, a young female. And no matter what others say, that is the truth." Her breath caught. She had never heard those words before. She had never been seen that way. To everyone else, she was nothing. An it. But to Raylan, she was Aisha, a girl, a female. That night she could not sleep. She replayed his words again and again, like a secret melody. She touched the blanket he had given her and felt something powerful stir inside. She was no longer invisible, but bonds like this are dangerous. The next day, when she waited at their usual place, Raylan did not arrive at the normal time. Hours passed. Fear grew in her chest. Had something happened to him? Had he abandoned her? Finally, near midnight, he appeared. His face was bruised, his lip bleeding. Isha gasped. She rushed forward, forgetting her fear. "What happened?" Raylan wiped the blood with the back of his hand. "Some men don't like what I do. They wanted me to stop." Her small body shook with anger. For the first time, she felt the fire of rage. Why risk this for me?" she whispered. He looked at her, eyes steady even through the pain. "Because you are worth it." The words struck her deeper than any blade. At that moment, something inside Aisha shifted forever. She was no longer just a forgotten alien orphan. She was someone seen, someone defended, someone who mattered. And though she did not yet understand it, this bond between them would soon be tested by forces far greater than cruel words or angry fists. Because the colony, and maybe even the universe, would never allow a human and an alien girl to walk the same path without a fight. The colony had always been cruel to Aisha, but after Raylan defended her, cruelty turned into something darker. People no longer only mocked. They began to watch. They began to whisper. The idea of a human protecting an alien stray was an insult to many. To some, it was even a crime. At first, it was only words. Merchants muttering when Raylan walked by, soldiers sneering as he carried food through the streets. But soon the whispers grew into warnings. "She'll bring you trouble, Raylan," an old worker told him one evening. "She's cursed. Strays always are." Raylan ignored them, but danger was already moving in the shadows. One night, Aisha waited in her usual place near the broken wall. The stars glimmered faintly through the smoky sky. She clutched the blanket Raylan had given her, her heart heavy with unease. He was late. Then she heard footsteps. Heavy. Many. Her stomach dropped. It was not Raylan. From the darkness, a group of colony soldiers appeared. Their armor clanked as they stepped into the dim firelight. Their faces were hard, their eyes sharp. "There it is," one of them said, pointing at Isha. "The little stray." Isha's body froze. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. Another soldier laughed. "Orders are clear. Strays wandering. Too close to the colony are to be removed. Permanently." The words struck her like knives. Removed. Permanently. The soldiers closed in, hands reaching for her. Panic surged through her veins. She stumbled back, shaking her head. "No. Please. No." But then, a shadow moved. Raylan. He stepped out from the darkness, his voice sharp like thunder. "Enough." The soldiers stopped. Their leader sneered. "Raylan, this is none of your business. Orders are orders." Raylan's fists tightened. "She is under my protection." The soldiers laughed, but there was no humor in it. A human protecting that? You've lost your mind. One soldier lunged forward to grab Aisha. Before he could touch her, Raylan struck. His fist cracked against the soldier's jaw, sending him crashing to the ground. The others shouted, drawing weapons. Aisha gasped, fear and shock flooding her chest. She had seen violence before, but never for her sake. The fight exploded in seconds. Raylan moved like a storm. His fists, his boots, his body. Every strike was fueled by a fire she did not understand. Soldiers tried to surround him, but he fought with the skill of a man who had faced death before. Still, he was only one. They were many. Blades cut across his arm. A boot slammed into his ribs. Blood dripped down his cheek. Aisha crouched against the wall, trembling, her heart breaking. She wanted to scream, to run, but something held her in place. For the first time in her life, someone was fighting for her, bleeding for her. And then, in a voice that tore through the chaos, Raylan shouted, "Run, Aisha, run!" But she didn't. Her body shook, but her feet refused to move. Her eyes locked on him, refusing to abandon the only person who had ever seen her as more than nothing. Raylan's strength began to falter. A soldier slammed him to the ground. Another raised a blade high, ready to end it. Aisha's voice ripped from her throat, raw and desperate. "Stop!" The sound froze the air. Everyone turned to look at her. The soldiers sneered, but in her eyes burned something they did not expect: fury, fire, life. For a moment, even Raylan was stunned. That hesitation was enough. With a growl, Raylan surged upward, knocking the blade aside and sending the soldier sprawling. He fought with renewed strength, pushing them back until, finally, the soldiers retreated into the shadows, spitting curses. "This isn't over," their leader hissed before disappearing into the night. Silence fell. Only Raylan's ragged breathing remained. Aisha crawled to his side. His body was battered, his blood warm against her hands. Tears blurred her vision. "Why? Why do this? For me?" Raylan's eyes met hers, calm even in pain. "Because you deserve more than this world gives you." Her chest tightened. The words were impossible, unbelievable, yet they burned with truth. She touched his hand. Her fingers were small, fragile, trembling. But in that moment she felt something powerful rise inside her. This was not just kindness. This was not just protection. This was a bond deeper than she had ever known. But danger had been awakened. The soldiers would not forget. The colony would not forgive. Raylan had chosen her side, and that choice had marked them both. As the night wind howled through the broken streets, Aisha understood something terrifying. Her life was no longer her own. Her fate and Raylan's were now tied together, and the universe would soon test just how strong their bond truly was. After the fight with the soldiers, the colony was no longer the same for Raylan and Aisha. Whispers grew louder. Eyes followed them wherever they went. The people who once ignored Aisha now stared at her with anger, as if her very existence was a crime. Raylan's wounds healed slowly. His ribs ached and his arm carried a deep cut. Yet every evening he still brought food and water. Every evening he still sat with Aisha by the broken wall. But now, their meetings were not hidden anymore. Everyone knew, and the danger was closer than ever. One morning when Raylan walked into the marketplace, a group of men stopped him. Their leader, a merchant with cold eyes, stepped forward. "You should leave the stray, Raylan," he said. "You're bringing shame to your own kind." Raylan's jaw tightened. "She's not a stray. She's a person." The men laughed. "A person? She's nothing. She's not even human." Raylan's voice grew sharp. "She is worth more than your words." The men spat at his feet and walked away. But their message was clear. The colony would not forgive his choice. That night, when Aisha saw the bruise on Raylan's face, she asked in a trembling voice, "They hurt you? Because of me?" Raylan shook his head. "No. They hurt me because they are afraid of change. You are not the reason." But Aisha felt the weight of guilt. For years she had lived unseen, unwanted, and suddenly someone was suffering for her. She wanted to protect him, but she was small, weak. What could she do? Still, something inside her was changing. She no longer saw herself as nothing. Each day with Raylan reminded her that she was alive, that she had a name, that she had worth. But the world did not want her to believe it. One stormy evening, soldiers came again. This time they did not try to take Aisha in the open. They came when she was alone, huddled in her shelter. "Orders are final," one soldier said coldly. "The alien female must be removed. She is a danger." Isha's body froze with terror. She could not fight them. She could not run fast enough, but Raylan was there. He appeared like a shadow from the rain, his voice cutting through the storm. "You'll have to go through me first." The soldiers laughed. "You think you can fight the whole colony, Raylan? She is not worth it." Raylan's eyes burned with fire. "She is worth everything." And then the fight began again. The storm raged around them as Raylan battled in the mud. He fought with desperate strength, blocking blades, pushing soldiers back, his body already breaking from old wounds. Aisha screamed for him to stop, but he did not. He could not. One soldier struck Raylan's back with a heavy rod. He fell to his knees, blood mixed with rain running down his face. Isha's heart shattered. She rushed forward, shielding him with her small body. Her voice trembled but carried a power she never knew she had. "Stop. If you want to kill him, you'll have to kill me too." The soldiers hesitated, their faces twisted with disgust, but something in her voice made them pause. And in that moment, other colonists appeared, watching from the shadows. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some laughed, but others looked uncertain. The soldiers did not want witnesses. With curses, they pulled back, retreating into the storm. Raylan collapsed into the mud, barely conscious. Isha held him, tears mixing with rain. "Why do you do this?" she whispered. His voice was weak, but steady. "Because you are the only thing in this world worth saving." Her hands shook as she pressed the blanket he had given her against his wounds. For the first time in her life, she prayed. Not to gods, not to stars, but to fate itself. She prayed for him to live. That night, she stayed by his side, refusing to leave him even for a moment. She gave him the last of her food, the last of her water. She whispered stories she barely remembered from her lost family, hoping her voice would keep him awake. It was sacrifice. Small, fragile, but real. For years, she had been given nothing. Now she gave everything she had to keep him alive. Days later, when Raylan finally stood again, his body broken but his spirit unshaken, he looked at Aisha with new eyes. "You are stronger than you know," he told her. Her heart trembled. She wanted to believe it. But danger was still close. The colony would not forget. And beyond the colony, darker forces stirred. Forces that hated her kind. Forces that would not stop until she was gone. For now, though, all that mattered was this. A human had chosen her. A human had bled for her. And she would never let that sacrifice be in vain. The storm passed, but peace never came. After the night of the soldiers, Raylan and Isha were no longer only watched. They were hunted. The colony leaders saw them as a danger, a symbol of rebellion. If one human could care for a forgotten alien, then others might begin to question the old ways. That, the leaders could not allow. Posters appeared in the marketplace. Raylan's name was written in bold letters. A warning. Aid to alien strays is treason. Anyone who sheltered him or the girl would face punishment. Raylan read the notice with calm eyes, then tore it down. "They won't scare me," he said. But inside, even he knew the danger had grown heavier. Isha saw the weariness in him. His shoulders bent lower each day. His face carried fresh cuts and bruises. Yet when she tried to speak of leaving, he silenced her with a look. "I won't abandon you," he told her firmly. "Not now, not ever." But the colony was preparing. Something. Raylan could feel it in the way soldiers gathered at night, in the way whispers fell silent when he walked past. The air itself seemed heavy with coming violence. One evening, as the two sat together near the old wall, a small boy ran to them. His face was pale, his voice shaking. "They're coming," the boy said. "The soldiers, all of them. They mean to take her tonight." Isha's body froze. Her thin fingers clutched the blanket tightly. She looked at Raylan with wide, frightened eyes. "What will we do?" she whispered. Raylan's jaw tightened. He had fought many battles in his life, but this was different. This was not a battle he could win with fists and blades. This was the colony against one man. He looked at her, and for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. That night, as they hid in the shadows beyond the colony walls, Raylan spoke in a low voice. "There is a path into the desert. If you follow it far enough, you may find traders, maybe even others of your kind. You could survive." Isha shook her head quickly. "Not without you." Raylan's chest ached. "If I go with you, they will chase us both. You'll never escape. But if I stay behind—" He paused, swallowing hard. "I can give you time." The meaning struck her like a blade. He was asking her to leave him, to survive while he sacrificed himself. "No." Her voice cracked. "I won't leave you. You're the only one who sees me. If you stay, I'll stay. If you fight, I'll fight." Raylan gripped her shoulders, his voice rough with urgency. "Isha, listen to me. This is not about what you want. This is about survival. Your life matters more than mine." Tears burned her eyes. "Why? Why does my life matter more?" He looked at her then with a softness that cut deeper than any wound. "Because you are the future. I am only a man with scars. But you are proof that kindness can exist, where no one believes it can. If you live, then what I've done means something." The desert wind howled around them. The choice lay heavy in the night air. Isha's heart shattered. For so long she had been unseen, unloved, unwanted. Now the only person who had given her hope was asking her to go on without him. She wanted to scream, to fight, to refuse. But she saw the truth in his eyes. Raylan was not afraid for himself. He was afraid for her. The sound of boots echoed in the distance. The soldiers were coming. Torches burned like angry stars, drawing closer with every heartbeat. Raylan pressed the blanket into her hands. "When I move, you run. Don't look back." Her lips trembled. "And if I never see you again?" He smiled faintly, though his eyes were wet with sorrow. "Then remember this. You were never nothing. You were always Isha." The torches grew brighter. The soldiers were near. Raylan rose to his feet, squaring his shoulders. His body was tired, his wounds still fresh. But he stood tall. He looked like a warrior again, ready to face death without fear. Isha's heart screamed inside her chest. She wanted to grab him, to hold on, to never let go. But his words echoed in her soul. "If you live, then what I've done means something." When the first soldier's shout tore through the night, Raylan turned to her one last time. "Run!" Her legs moved before her mind could stop them. She clutched the blanket and fled into the desert, tears streaming down her face. Each step was agony, each breath a wound. Behind her, she heard the clash of steel, the roar of voices, the sound of a man standing against the world. But she did not look back. She could not. Because if she did, she knew she would never have the strength to keep going. And so, under the endless stars, Isha ran. Alone. Broken. But alive. The choice had been made, and its cost would echo across the galaxy. The desert stretched endless before Isha. Sand cut her feet, the cold night air burned her lungs, but still she ran. Behind her, the sound of battle faded into the distance, steel clashing, men shouting, a single voice standing against many. Raylan. Every step tore at her heart. She wanted to turn back, to run to him, to fight at his side. But his words rang in her ears like thunder. "If you live, then what I've done means something." So she ran. She ran until her legs collapsed beneath her and the stars blurred into rivers of light. For days she wandered, half starved, half dreaming. Sometimes she thought she heard his voice in the wind. Sometimes she clutched the blanket he had given her so tightly her fingers bled. But she did not stop. She would not waste his sacrifice. At last she stumbled upon a group of traveling traders. They looked at her with suspicion, but when she offered them the small trinket she carried, a piece of broken glass that shone like a jewel under the sun, they gave her water, food, and a place among them. Yet nothing filled the emptiness inside her. Weeks passed. She grew stronger, but her heart remained torn. She had survived, yes. But what of Raylan? Had he lived? Had he fallen? The question burned inside her with every sunrise. And then, one evening as the traders made camp near the edge of a ruined canyon, she saw him. At first she thought it was a dream. A tall figure, limping, scarred, his clothes torn and bloodstained. But his eyes were the same. Raylan. She ran to him, tears blinding her sight. You're alive. He caught her in his arms, though his body trembled with weakness. I told you. I would not leave you. She sobbed against his chest, the weight of weeks breaking free. For the first time she felt safe again. For the first time hope was not just a fragile flame, it was fire. When the traders saw the human and the alien girl together, they whispered among themselves. Some mocked, but others looked with wonder. For in that moment, they saw not a stray and a fool, but two beings bound by something stronger than fear. Love, Raylan, and Aisha traveled with the traders for many days, moving farther and farther from the colony. Raylan spoke little of what happened that night, but Aisha could see the truth in his scars. He had fought until his body nearly broke, buying her the time to escape. He had chosen her life over his own. And now, though weak, he walked beside her, still. One night, as they sat by the fire, Aisha looked at him with wide, questioning eyes. Why, Raylan? Why did you choose me? I was nothing, I was no one. He smiled faintly, his gaze fixed on the stars. That is what makes us human, Aisha. To see worth where others see none. To love when it is foolish. To protect when it costs everything. That is the answer. His words burned into her soul. No one had ever wanted her. No one had ever seen her as a female, as someone who could be loved. Except him. And in that answer, she finally understood. She was not nothing. She was not an it. She was Aisha. A girl. A female. A being with worth. And it was one human, one stubborn, scarred, foolish human, who had proved it to her. Their bond grew stronger with every passing day. They faced hunger, storms, and the distrust of strangers, but they faced it together. Raylan gave her strength and Aisha gave him purpose, yet beyond the deserts and ruins, the galaxy stirred. Whispers spread of a human who had fought for an alien orphan, of a girl who had survived against all odds. Some called it madness. Others called it hope. The story would travel farther than they knew. But for Aisha, the greatest truth was simple. No one had seen her. No one had wanted her. No one had loved her except one human. And that was enough. Enough to change her life. Enough to change his. Enough, perhaps, to change the future of them all. As the firelight flickered in her dark eyes, she reached for Raylan's hand. His fingers closed around hers, rough and warm. Together they looked at the stars. And for the first time she did not feel alone. For the first time, she believed she belonged. For the first time, she was truly alive.